What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Pro Football Focus Fantasy Show, Week 3 edition. I am Brit Devine, as always, joined by my man, Ian Hartitz from Pro Football Focus. Ian, what is up? We've got 2 weeks of data now. You know, week one is after we have week one, we think we know everything. And then after week two, we see what we know and what we don't know. And week three is where we can sort of start leveraging all of this together. It used to be like week 4 or 5. I think with the way the DFS industry, everyone's so smart now, you really got to start jumping on this year's data for week 3. Looking to be a nice week in DFS and sports betting. What's going on, my man?
Great day to be great. As always here on Friday, got to love my friends over here at RotoGrinders. But yeah, man, just again, trying to soak in as much as we have while not overreacting too much. I mean, just looking at some of these backfields, Miami, the Rams, even a place like Jacksonville, like just the amount it's changed from 1 week to the next, it goes out to show us that, again, we really don't know quite as much as we think we do ever, but especially right now until we get a couple more weeks under the belt.
Yeah, I see some of you guys on YouTube. Please click the like button. We would appreciate that. And there, if you're watching it live, and if you're watching it on the replays, please click that as well. Let's just jump right into week 3, Ian, because this is last week we had no good quarterbacks. This is the week of the quarterback. They're all on the main slate pretty much. But we've got to go to your article over on Pro Football Focus first, the Mismatch manifesto. A lot of different statistics we like to look at here. The first one is explosive play rate. These are plays that can pick up a lot of fantasy points for your quarterback, running back, and wide receiver in one chunk. What offenses look like they're in a prime spot to possibly put up some chunk plays? And are there any that most of the time we would be looking at that might be looking a little down?
As always with these charts, blue is good, red is bad, and all we're doing is it's not complicated. How do we talk about any matchup? It's the offense ranks X in this, the defense ranks Y. I've just combined those into one-way metric so we don't have to go through a bunch of hoops. So with all that in mind, looking at the offense is set up really well, explosive pass plays, Titans, Bears, Chargers, Lions, and Packers. And again, this is a combination of both their offense and also the defense's futility. So even though the Bears are on there, they haven't been throwing much, but to be fair, we did see in week 1, Justin Fields playing a little bit of, schoolyard ball out there. They were able to hit some big plays in their limited attempts. So maybe, just maybe now in a game that's not going to be impacted so much by Mother Nature, or I think, that beastly of a pass rush like they had to deal with in Green Bay last week. Maybe we see guys like Darnell Mooney, like Cole Kmet, who have been so disappointing so far, actually get a chance to go out there and make some plays, because even though they haven't been getting the targets or the yards, they're still running a route, man, as much as we could be asking for. There's just no volume to get there. That hilarious tweet we had going viral this week. Justin Fields, 33rd in pass attempts in a league, full of 32 teams right now. So also have the Lions and Packers popping, just Amon-Ra St. Brown. Inevitable at this point, and it'd be a lot easier to get behind anything in Green Bay if the entire wide receiver room wasn't injured. But with that said, Britt, Romeo Doubs sitting there at 3.8K might have to meet that value, man. I don't think Rodgers is going to have many other places to even think about throwing the ball.
Yeah, I think I saw right before the show, I think Watson and who was it? Watkins, I think they were in practice today. So that literally happened just a few minutes before we logged in here. So I think there will be some targets for Aaron Rodgers. It's not an official play, but I do like the Green Bay side of that game. It's on the flip side. There's nobody for Tom Brady to throw. Cole Beasley is coming from the graveyard to catch some passes for Tom Brady this week, apparently. Any offenses that we might want to use players from that you think we shouldn't in terms of explosive play rate?
I did look at that, Packers and Buccaneers game, and it's wild. I sent out a tweet yesterday. You look at Goff versus Cousins, and the game total of that's 52. And then you have Rodgers versus Brady, and we're at 41.5. But it's just a reality of when you take away any quarterback, including Rodgers and Brady, when you take away literally their top 2 or 3 pass game options, it's going to be tough for them to get there. So in Rodgers' case, what you just said, where okay, it's not guaranteed these guys are going to be out, but certainly seem to be operating at less than 100%. And these are 2 really good defenses. The Buccaneers have proved that. I think the Packers, more so as the year goes on, we'll get back to looking like that. But kind of lost, I think, in the Bills, just overall domination to start this year has been how good that Buccaneers defense is as well. They are the top 2 defenses so far in EPA allowed per play. So that would be the big question mark kind of in Buffalo and Miami, because that's the only reason why Miami isn't kind of popping more on this list. You look at their offense specifically, and they've been great. But the Bills defense, Jets, man, my God, they've just been incredible. And they do have some injuries in the secondary, which we can talk about later. I will say, though, if there is a team built to kind of overcome these injuries, it's probably the Bills right now. They've already been playing without number one cornerback Tre'Davious White. Britt, they've only blitzed on 5% of their opponents' plays. That's easily the lowest amount in the league. Yet they're getting the second highest pressure rate because Von Miller and these dudes just aren't able to be blocked at the line of scrimmage. So when you literally can get pressure at one of the highest rates in the league and still keep 7, sometimes even 8 defenders back in pass coverage, I do think they have a better chance than someone like the Ravens, who a lot more times rely on blitzing to get after the quarterback.
Yeah, I think I've got an angle on that game. I think they might have to switch it up because they were relying on Hyde and Boyer, and those guys are both out. So I don't know if they're going to be able to do that so much this week, playing all that zone, basically relying on those 2 safeties. What do you want to talk about next on your article? You like to jump around here. You want to go to the pace. That's pretty much something that's always interesting. And there's the Houston at Chicago, right? When I saw this on your article as being one of the highest paced games of the week, I think is a little interesting. You've got Detroit, Amon-Ra, St. Brown, Kirk Cousins, if you want to eat that chalk, at least from the Kirk Cousins side. Let me check. It is not an 8 o'clock game. Kirk Cousins should be good this week. Ian, there's a couple of games high in pace, a couple low that we might want to stay away from is, Greg Dortch. Is he going to get any snap? Are there going to be any plays for him to convert all those PPR fantasy points? What are we looking at here?
I think that Lions and Vikings game just being, a little bit unique about how we approach it, because everything is checking out in terms of, the game kind of environment that we're looking for. So maybe it's instead of Amon-Ra, we go to DeAndre Swift and just kind of hope that his participation is going to be up a lot, after being limited last week, but making the most out of his opportunities anyway. TJ Hawkinson continues to see, perfect basically route usage. He's just not been getting the targets and accordingly the production. So on the Vikings side, Adam Thielen has not gone 3 straight games where injuries weren't involved without a touchdown since 2018. If he doesn't score this week, he is going to be there. So more on that kind of in our prop section, but certainly do like that game. Also seeing Texans and Bears just popping a little bit. And again, I do think there are enough kind of signs here where, hey, if we don't want to get on Montgomery, that's fine. Maybe we do throw a couple shots at Moody, or even as gross as it is, a Cole Kmet out there. Brandon Cook, someone too that I do think is going to be due for bigger days ahead. Dropped a 6-yard touchdown last week and almost came down with another one next play. Saints and Panthers also looking like one that could move a little bit faster than we're expecting. Michael Thomas, just I don't know what more the guy needs to do before we rank him as an elite wide receiver here, at least with the DraftKings pricing. Certainly not there this week. In terms of slow pace, Rams and Cardinals are really popping, but the Cardinals have, just because of how much they've fallen behind immediately both 2 weeks of the season, I think it's a little bit more fluky. We usually do see Cliff and company using a faster pace week in and week out. So I'm not too worried about that one. The 49ers Broncos Sunday Night Football, that's maybe more so one I would look a little bit more towards the under. But yeah, man, more than anything, Lions and Vikings, that's one of the games I'm looking forward to most. What a time to be alive.
And I did see for that Denver game, if you're playing anything at all or just need your fantasy lineups, does look like Jerry Jeudy suited up for practice again right before the show. So I would expect him to be on the field for that game. Pressure, you want to talk about this? Because this has been really interesting from a couple of teams, like the Bengals. There's a prop I'm on, hit last week. I'm basically going to be on it all season for Evan McPherson, where their offense is just good enough, but their offensive line has been not great. It just allows a lot of field goals for a guy like Evan McPherson. There's another kicker I'm going to be targeting something similar this week as well from the prop section. But what can we read in terms of pressure? Is this real for Joe Burrow? Does he have to worry about not being able to get the ball downfield to his elite targets? Is there any other offense we should maybe throw a little caution at?
League high 96 sacks taken since he entered the league. I've been talking a lot more with Kevin Cole on the PFF Fantasy Football podcast. And I asked Kevin, just because we have been showing in the past at PFF that pressure and sacks sometimes actually more of an indictment on the quarterback than the offensive line. And while Burrow does deserve some of the blame, it's also just this offensive line is not helping him at all. And anyone that's watched Burrow play at any point over the past 3 years would obviously know that as well. So yeah, man, Jets sitting there, defense 2.4K. I do think it could could be a game where we see them make life tough. I mean, Sauce Gardner, number 4 overall pick, he has done a good job. Cooper got his yards last week, but he really had to earn them. If there was going to be a game where once again, we just see Burrow and company not able to attack downfield, and then all of a sudden things get a little difficult, would make sense if it could be this road matchup. Similar sentiment here with the Lions going into Minnesota. Now, I do think that as we're seeing here, Kirk Cousins having the worst combined pressure rate of any quarterback, I think that's more of an indictment on him week 1. The Packers really managing to get after him despite Cousins doing pretty okay against the pressure and getting the ball to Justin Jefferson. And then last week, the Eagles being able to instill their will. So the Lions this year, Aiden Hutchinson had a bunch of sacks last week, but they're only 14th in pressure rates. So I'm not completely, scared off about the Vikings passing game because of this. With that said, man, to see the Lions as the cheapest defense out there at 2.2K, I think seeing something like this does give me enough confidence to be able to throw them in there. Would note that Josh Allen, Baker, maybe some of his weapons, and Marcus Mariota are the guys that look like they should have all day to throw. I love getting up to Josh Allen and cash if you can get there, because why not? He's Josh freaking Allen. With Marcus Mariota, though, maybe, just a, poor man's version. So,
yeah, there's going to be a lot of big name quarterbacks you're probably going to want to spend on this week, because odds are one of those guys post that 30-plus fantasy point performance you're going to need. Why not Josh Allen, in my opinion? There's Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes in a dome. How are we going to choose, Ian? Lots to talk about when we get to DFS. What do you want to talk about here? You want to talk the trenches? You want to talk EPA, yards per dropback? I know someone wanted a little bit of that last week.
Yeah,
take your favorite here.
Go to the yards per drop back. I got it back in after we got a couple notes about that. Appreciate you guys checking it out after all these years, and we're still grinding. So Josh Allen, again, just really standing out. Same with Patrick Mahomes. Like, isn't it great when these charts actually tell us what our eyes usually see as well? And Lamar Jackson, man. I guess this is maybe the one that we could be sleeping on just a little bit because of everything you just said. Guys like Josh Allen, Mahomes, even Jalen Hurts setting up for, far more ownership than I think someone like Lamar Jackson, who has just looked fantastic this year throwing the football. I mean, if you just look at straight dropbacks, take away rollouts, scrambles, and screens, and look at yards per attempt, number 1 is Jalen Hurts, shout out. Number 2 is Tua, and number 3 is Lamar Jackson. So it was fun seeing that, 78-yard touchdown run he had last week. A good reminder that he's usually the fastest player on any field he steps on, but throwing the ball too, man. And against the Patriots defense that, hey, they were able to get a win last week, but this is still a team that hasn't exactly, been overly challenged, I think, to start the year, especially there last week and week 2. So even though Bill Belichick, he's the only coach in the league that tries to take away the best player, as we hear, week in and week out, I do think Lamar Jackson always has that slate breaking appeal, and a lot of people don't seem to be giving him that respect this week.
Yeah, we'll talk about the spread in that game. I absolutely agree with you. I don't understand why the Ravens are 2, and it's moved. They were 3, and now it's 2.5. I don't understand this. We'll talk about that one just a little bit more. Anything else? The EPA per play is always interesting. You got anything that's standing out here?
Yeah, just the Broncos being 1.5-point home dogs is a little bit interesting to me. I mean, I understand they haven't exactly come out of the gate looking like world beaters, but you watch those games and their defense still does look awfully formidable. And I just think that Russell Wilson and company only going to be going up. To your point earlier, if Judy is going to be back, that's great news. And man, I don't think they deserve to be home dogs at this point. They've had a lot of near touchdowns, the sheeshes I have to keep track of over these first 2 weeks, where I think if literally, a play or two kind of goes their way, we could be having a much better opinion of them.
Yeah. All right. So that is Ian's article, the Mismatch Manifesto. You do need a PFF subscription this year to check it out, along with everything else over at PFF, player grades, premium stats. I use the grades a lot. I'll have some analysis on a few players on that. Just a great site, pretty much the only thing I use outside of the stuff we have here at RotoGrinders for sports betting, DFS. Well, for sports betting, I guess it's Derek Carty's the Blitz and all that. But anything over at PFF, if you're looking for some additional information, is a great low-cost subscription, in my opinion, one of the best you can get. All right, let's jump into some sports betting. What do we got? Let's talk about the Ravens here first, because we just mentioned this a little bit here. I bet this on a look-ahead line last week at -3. I always like the look-ahead lines. I got another one of those for next week when I start talking. The Bills on the look-ahead worked out. I got them at -4, and now they're at -5.5 or 6. I think it's down to -5 with a couple of the injuries. But, hey, I'll take a free point on the look-ahead line. Why are the Ravens just 2.5-point favorites going into Foxborough? I don't understand this at all.
I have no idea, man. Like, this Patriots offense has looked broke really for the entire season so far. And that's what we heard in the preseason. And like, everyone just loves to kind of throw the dirt at Matt Patricia. It's like a nice running joke we got going on social media. Mac Jones throws a terrible interception that's clearly his fault. No, let's just go ahead and blame it on Matt Patricia here. So the backfield's all sorts of banged up. Really they're forced now to start relying on everyone's favorite sleeper, Ramondre Stevenson. David Harris still getting early down work, but just not impressed about the offense. And in terms of the defense, decent enough job slowing down Tua and company in week 1. But I just think that what we've seen from Baltimore is terrible job by them last week, allowing the Dolphins to come back late, but they were still beating the shit out of the Dolphins through 45 minutes of that game. There were some blown coverages. I don't think we can exactly rely on to happen every week. Have gotten, a week to get healthier. I think the Baltimore Ravens are a vastly better football team than what the Patriots are. I think the Patriots are just still getting the Patriots respect that they deserved and earned and should have had for 2 decades with Brady there, but this is a new time.
Yeah, I don't understand this. Absolutely love the Ravens side of this one. I'm debating maybe changing one of the ones I have because I thought I mentioned Jordan Poyer was out. It does look like he returned to practice today, so I'm expecting him. So
I think it was Jordan Phillips. It's their D tackle that's out. That's
that was the other one. He's been pretty good for them this year. So
I know. It'd be different if both safeties were out, so I hear you.
Yeah. Let's talk a couple of your other ones here that you got for sports betting. I see you like the Broncos. You've talked about them a lot. The EPA per play looks like it sides with them. What do you see in their matchup this week?
Yeah, and again, just the idea that Russ and this passing game are a bit better than I think we've actually seen in their final scores and stuff. So the Nathaniel Hackett stuff, like it's just based on these annoying kind of game management issues that, he should be fixing because he's a head football coach. But it's just also something that I think gets a little too scrutinized in the media because it is something easy enough for kind of all of us to figure out, even if you're a casual football fan, not that there's anything wrong with that. You can tell when a guy maybe shouldn't kick a 65-yard field goal or do his clock management stuff. I think that's taken away from the fact this Broncos team should still be awfully formidable week in and week out. So Broncos at home in Mile High. I'll take the 1.5 points there. And then also I'll take the Saints over a Panthers team that I just think we're looking at, a matter of when, not if Matt Rule is going to be the first coach fired. And, anytime we have a team that I think the Panthers are like more talented than your usual kind of down the dumpster team. With that said, if they're just going to start quitting on the guy soon, I'm not exactly seeing that out of the Saints who week 1, great comeback, high scoring game with them and the Falcons. I don't think the Panthers can keep up. And I certainly don't think the Panthers are quite as good as that Buccaneers juggernaut defense I mentioned before. So Saints -2.5, taking the 2 short road favorites there. Always a little bit scary, but we do got the Broncos as the +1.5 at home. Hey, 3-2 on the year, Britt. Let's go ahead and make that a sweep this week. Why the hell not?
Yeah, I'm 2-1-1. So here's a couple of mine. One are another one that's very puzzling to me. I guess it's for the home field advantage is Texans +3. The Texans are, what have the Bears shown us? They played that rain game and then they got absolutely. The score wasn't enormous against the Packers, but the Packers completely dominated that game from start to finish. And I don't understand why the Bears are 3-point favorites at home against the Texans. The Texans played the Broncos very close, and then they tied the Colts. And I don't think the Colts are very good. I think that's one of the reasons I'm going to have the Chiefs on a look-ahead line in just a little bit as an extra for you. But they got Brandon Cooks is, I think, still a very elite receiver. Pierce, they got rid of Rex Burkhead, and they gave Pierce every carry out of the backfield. I think he looked really good. I think the Texans defense is just fine. What is this pass? They're running the ball more than they're throwing the ball. If this just keeps up, you can't win in today's NFL. I think eventually they're going to have to unleash Justin Fields and Mooney and Cole Kmet with 0 receptions. He's not obviously going to stay there. But the Texans have shown they're a much better team. I think they can go on the road. If you like the money line, I think they're fine. I think they win the game outright. But if you want to play it a little safer, getting that +3 is a very nice line on the Texans, in my opinion. And the other one I have, so with Poyer in it, I guess it doesn't really change it. I just think the Buffalo, Miami over 52.5. The Bills could hit that. I don't think the Dolphins could hit that, but they can put up points against the Bills. I think this is going to be a great game. McDaniels has legitimized himself, I think, in 2 games as at least a top 10 head coach in the league, if not higher, in my opinion. He's doing everything you would expect a coach to do to maximize his talent on the field. You've got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, 2 of the fastest guys in the NFL, with Tua throwing them. these short to intermediate routes, but if there's any sort of miscommunication, these guys are gone. And in a blink of an eye with a couple of guys out on defense, the over 52.5, I hit the over on the Washington game. I was sort of sweating it for the first half, but then Washington did their thing. I like this 52.5 for Buffalo, Miami. You can get that on DraftKings and the Texans +3. I agree completely with you on the Ravens. I have bet that. I'm not going to throw that on mine and take one of yours. But out of the three you have, that is absolutely the one I agree the most on. And my look-ahead line, not counting these as official, but the Chiefs are at the Buccaneers. I thought this would be like -5, -6. How's this any different than the Colts? And they're 1-point favorites on the road against Tom Brady. And Tom Brady has, I'm sure Mike Evans might be back, but these guys are like Julio Jones. Is he ever going to actually be like healthy the rest of the season? Is there any offensive line for Tampa Bay? I don't think so.
I don't know if that's a slam dunk, man.
Why not? You like Tom Brady getting up for this game?
I mean, the Chiefs realistically probably should have lost the Chargers last week.
I understand that.
So it's just
I guess here's my take. My take is they're going to totally dust the Colts. I think the Colts are not that great. This is Mahomes in a dome. I think the line will be bigger, which to your point is why you should bet it at -1. So that's this is the main. I think they dust the Colts this week, and this goes to 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't even know how it probably won't get to a touchdown, but I think big favorites is what I was trying to say.
I was cutting you off, so that's my bad. I did almost want to bet on Chiefs -5.5, but it's already just been rising a bit, so I don't like chasing those points that much. But I agree. I mean, the Colts, man, they've been terrible. Like this isn't even a like unlucky situation. Like last week, they got this shit beat out of them on both sides of the ball against the Jaguars team. That maybe a little bit better than we're thinking, but come on, man, like you just haven't seen that happen to many other terrible teams at this point in time. So I know their wide receivers are getting healthier, but it's not like that made that big of a difference in week 1 when they were all out there to begin with. So they're like the Cowboys, man, honestly, on offense. Like Michael Pittman's fantastic. So is CeeDee Lamb. But when you just basically ignore it and you just kind of have your guys come up, then, you're going to have these growing pains. Same thing in Green Bay. So as great as, Ashton Doolin and Alec Pierce and stuff might look, in pads in training camp, I think it just gets a little tougher when you're out there. Also with the Dolphins offense, if you are, still not quite a Tua believer, that's okay. I don't blame you. But at this point with Tyreek Hill, with Jalen Waddle, we got to believe in them because how could you not? And then Mike McDaniel, man, this offense so far, number 1 in play action rate, number 1 shift motion rate. He's doing everything right to make everything as easy as possible for Tua and these guys. So just more so embracing the whole offense, even if again you're a little hesitant to jump on the Tua bandwagon. I like to call it the over.
Mike McDaniel is the anti-Nathaniel Hackett. How about that? Sure. That's what it seems like so far this year. All right, so that was a couple of our, the lines you get basically just about everywhere. I want to talk about some props. I love the kicker props, Ian. It worked. Ian McPherson. Again, I don't understand how this is basically a even money or just short -105 line over 1.5 field goals on DraftKings. Dude's hit it in 10 straight games. He's hit it in 12 of the last 13. I mentioned before the Bengals, their offense is good enough to move down the field, and maybe the Jets defense is just bad enough to let them score all the touchdowns. But they'll unleash 55-yarder McPherson go out because he's going to make it. They know he's going to get the 3 points. It's free. So they just let him go out there and kick field goals, over 1.5 field goals. This is basically my best prop of the week. I think he's going to hit that almost. I mean, he's hit it in 10 straight. Why is it still -105? Another guy I like, it's sort of from the same thought process as Daniel Carlson, the kicker for the Raiders, over 1.5 field goals. He's hit this over 70% since the start of last season. He's 2 for 2 this year. And the Raiders, I bet the Raiders, the -2, I think they beat the Titans pretty easily, in my opinion. But the Titans have the one weakness of the Raiders offense. They can get a little bit of pass rush. So, again, I'm just thinking a team that, you've got Waller, you've got Devontae Adams, you've got Josh Jacobs. I know we're going to talk about him a little bit, the resurgence of him. Derek Carr can throw the ball. The offense is good. But maybe it's just not good enough, and the Titans' pass rush is just good enough to turn a 3rd and 3 into a 4th and 11 after a sack of Derek Carr, and it's a 45-yard field goal for Carlson. I think he bangs 2 through pretty easily. That was plus money. That was like plus 110. So I like the kicker props. You can get some money down on those. Absolutely love those. And then I'm going the rookie wide receivers. Are we ever going to have a bad rookie wide receiver class ever again, Ian? Because these guys – are going bananas. I'm on Drake London this week, over 54.5 receiving yards. He's done this in 2 straight. He's PFF's 7th graded wide receiver this season. So it's not just the yards. He's balling out when he's out there. And he's going up against PFF's 30th ranked pass coverage, 33% of the target share, 54.5. This should be like 68.5, 65.5, something like that, in my opinion. I think we're getting some free yards. Drake London, the over 54.5. And this is just the dust of Kyle Pitts. I'm fading Kyle Pitts. I'm going Drake London. He looks like the alpha, at least for now. Maybe it changes at some point, but this line is too low. Those are my 3 props for the weekend.
But Kyle Pitts things, this happened last year. Like, we had this 3rd game of his career against the Jets, and people were like, if he doesn't ball out this week, like, will it ever happen? Like, what he's still 21, maybe he's 22 now. I do like to call
3 years for a tight end. Isn't that the rule to be a good NFL player?
Like, look, it's dumb. I agree. Like, the whole situation and Arthur Smith's like comments about it, but like, he's now 4.8K on DraftKings. Everything he just said about, going up against the Seattle team. Yeah, I'm with you on Drake London. That's fine, but let's get some Kyle Pitts out there too. We don't need to be fading him as well. If you look at the Seattle pass D, 340 yards to Russ in week 1. Then they just faced a 49ers team that was beating the shit out of them. Didn't even need to really pass. So I do think that we could see, again, this Falcons stack. Mariota was someone popping earlier about having all that time to throw. And even Cordero Patterson, man, if we want to get off that David Montgomery chalk, like, this is a Seahawks defense that I don't think has at all exactly shown us who they are this year, and that is not having Bobby Wagner and now Jamal Adams to stop that run. So they legit could be like one of the worst defenses in the league sooner rather than later. So I don't mind attacking them with my props. Bad week. Last week, we missed the plus 300 Eli Moore touchdown. Flacco threw 4 of them. I'd like to say the process was right, but an L is an L is an L. And then Trey Lance and James Conner got hurt, so that was sick. Hopefully, we'll get back on the right side of things this week. Talked a bit earlier about Adam Thielen and, just the Minnesota Vikings passing game. Again, Thielen, 2018, the last time he went 3 straight regular season games, injuries excluded, without scoring a touchdown. You can get him at plus 160 for an anytime touchdown over at Caesars. And then Kirk Cousins, over 2.5 passing touchdowns, plus 165 at PointsBet. Someone that, again, when he gets the Derek Carr comps a lot, but Cousins is someone that regularly throws, 30 plus passing touchdowns. Yeah, the pressure is a little bit of a concern, but Lions secondary got toasted by the Eagles in week 1. We saw Wentz and company go nuts in the second half in week 2. Again, everything's pointing for this one to be a shootout. I do think Cousins, Thielen, Justin Jefferson can all go off in this one. Also, like Matthew Stafford, go up against a Cardinals defense that, pick a stat, any stat, and they're going to just be popping as literally one of the worst secondaries in the league. They've just gotten their offense in such big holes to start the year. 26th in yards per attempt allowed, 32nd explosive pass play rate, 31st in pass touchdown rate, 31st in QB rating. So again, just absolutely atrocious. And with the Rams, I think week 1 against this Bills juggernaut made us think like, oh my gosh, like, are they going to be really bad? I thought they came back well last week, and Falcons made it close at the end, but that was off a cup fumble and like a block punt. So I do think Stafford and this passing game we're going to continue to see go off. And hey, man, maybe Cooper Kupp gets to 275 all by himself here. So and then finally, I'm going to taking the unders on these Dolphins running backs, Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert. Any of the yardage unders you can get, I'm fine taking it for both of them. It's flip-flop in each of the first 2 weeks. And just when you look at it as a whole, it's not the sort of situation that we should be dying to get a part of. Credit to Mike McDaniel. He sees who his best 2 players are, and they are not playing running back. They play wide receiver. So the Dolphins this year, they're 5th in pass play rate, but they're 18th in targets to actually their running backs, because only the Buccaneers and 49ers have actually force-fed in terms of target rates the ball to their wide receivers more often. So the Bills, top 3 defense in rushing yards, receptions, and receiving yards allowed to opposing running backs. And again, I think that's why we're seeing this. They've only allowed 6 receptions to running backs this year, because even though they start killing teams, you don't have the wide open checkdowns because they're just the way they play defense. They can continuously get pressure on you while still having ample guys and coverage. They don't sacrifice the throws to running backs. They don't sacrifice anything to anyone because they're the best defense in the league right now in terms of EPA per play. So while I do think Tyreek and Waddle and some of these guys in this Dolphins offense can still win out in this tough matchup, I'll be fading Edmonds and Mostert. I feel like one of these is automatically going to go under because we've just seen the usage dictate that, and the other one has a good chance because of the aforementioned tough matchup.
If you ever want to check out any sports lines, prop lines, you can go to Scores and Odds. It is our sports betting app here at RotoGrinders. We have a new Parlay IQ. This thing is crazy too. You can type in, it runs a bunch of simulations in the background of game simulations. Just check that, listen to this again. you want to do a same game parlay. Let's pretend it's the Bills-Dolphins game. You type in Josh Allen over 300 yards. Out of our simulations, it gives you a couple of the best likely to happen things once Josh Allen goes over 300 yards. You click in a couple of those, then you can click, boom, right to FanDuel, and it brings it. It's already preloaded in your FanDuel sportsbook. It's absolutely amazing. Some of the things it does here. You can check that out along with getting odds, getting picks. If you want the subscription from the RotoGrinders guys. I know Stevie, I think he's had a really hot start to the year in NFL. If you want to tail his picks, one of the best overall apps for finding the best odds, along with getting extra information as well, is over on Scores and Odds. All right, let's get into the DFS portion of the show. We'll start at quarterback. Ian, I mentioned earlier last week we were playing Derek Carr, and we should have all played Lamar Jackson, but sometimes it's tough to spend up on the expensive quarterbacks. I think this is a week. There's too many. There's Allen, there's Hurts, there's Mahomes. You got to have one of these guys on your cash game lineup this week. It's too risky. I know they're expensive. You can't get the high-priced wide receivers. I don't know if you even need the high-priced running backs anymore. You do need target hogs at wide receiver on your cash games, but I want the 25 to 30. I mean, these guys have 40 fantasy point upside any week. I got to have that this week.
Yeah, and again, I think after going through the cash lineup, like it is reasonable to get there with some of the value we're going to have at running back and wide receiver. I mentioned the Lions defense for 2.2K. So I was able to get all the way up to Allen in my build. And I think just when you look at some of the big mispricings, as we always see just from the Monday night games, I mean, Stephon Diggs being as cheap as he is compared to the other wide receivers just has no business being, was it freaking 2.2K cheaper than Cooper Kupp, 1,700 cheaper than Justin Jefferson. So Diggs has been the one outperforming him this year. His volume is on par with them, and his efficiency is right there. Xavier Howard, not a matchup we should shy away from after seeing what Bateman was able to do last week. Love stacking Allen with Diggs. In tournaments, I do think Burrow and Cousins could be two of these guys where I guess, people aren't exactly off Cousins, but we do see ownership remain relatively flat even for some of the chalkier players. So Burrow would just be the other guy where it's like, if they can actually keep him upright for once, and I will say in the pressure stuff, like he wasn't popping as someone that's under too much of a potential risk this week. So if they can't keep Joe Burrow upright, all those weapons that we, were lushing about, fawning over all throughout the offseason, they still do remain right there. So Burrow, Chase, Higgins, still a situation where they could win if we're looking for like who last week's Tua and stuff could be, I do think we could be looking at that. So mention the Jets defense. I don't think they're, a joke by any stretch. With that said, they certainly made Lamar look great in week 1, and Jacoby Brissett didn't look too bad in week 2 either. So if we get the best version of this Bengals passing game, I think they can take down any defense, particularly this one. And it seems like this week, with Chase being priced up where he is, people are probably going to be more willing to go down to Diggs or just go all the way up to a Jefferson or Kupp. I do think this could be a nice opportunity to get this Bengals passing game at a little bit more of a ownership discount than usual.
Yeah, if you're looking for tournaments, at least for me, a couple of guys I'm looking at is currently we have Josh Allen. We're recording this on Friday if you listen to it or watch it a little later. I think the ownership projections are reasonably good. They will dial in a little bit more as Jamino gets through the weekend and he does his little ownership report show on Saturday. But we've got Mahomes at half the ownership of Josh Allen. We've got Allen at 12. This is on DraftKings. Mahomes at 6. If Mahomes is going to be 6% owned, it's a little tougher to stack them, right? Because you probably want to use Kelsey and you probably want someone else, but after that, it's a little bit of a crapshoot. Maybe you throw in CEH and hope they just absolutely dust Indianapolis and they get to run out the clock a little bit later. But I think Mahomes is pretty interesting if that ownership actually holds to be that low. And then I'm going flop like Derek Carr against the Titans. How does that sound? Devontae Adams disappointed. Derek Carr disappointed a little bit last week when we were all using him. I know he's no Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, but Derek Carr to Devontae Adams doesn't sound too bad. I don't think Tennessee's defense is that great. I think Carr could maybe have a little bit of a bounce back week here, and he's coming in sub 5% owned, which when I did those Millionaire Maker articles is something you really want to target with low owned wide receivers. If you use Waller or Adams, nobody's really on those guys this week. So you're able to get a GPP winning performance from a low owned quarterback wide receiver stack or even the tight ended Waller. That's what I'm looking at from the GPP perspective. Anyone else you're interested in?
I would cover quarterback pretty well. We can go ahead and move on to running back. I mean, there are some pretty
let's
easy.
Let's hash out David Montgomery, because he looks like he's the industry chalk. I can sort of see it. I'm with you. The price tag is what, like, you need this week. You can't spend up on Christian McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor in your cash games. One, they haven't performed that great consistently, and two, the wide receivers are winning this year, and that's what you need. You need to spend on the guaranteed targets at the wide receiver position. So, like, Montgomery fits in there. He's 5,900 on DraftKings. He's reasonably priced on Fanduel. He's getting a ton of work. He's going up against Houston. I know I like the Texans to win this game outright, but what's your overall thought on him? Is he more of a trap player, or is he someone you're looking to possibly utilize?
I think it seems like a trap to me, man, because he's $500 more expensive of Josh Jacobs, who pretty much has the same exact role he does at the moment, just in a much better offense. So Montgomery is out there, for a little bit more of the routes, which is good to see. But if you just look at the total opportunities last week, I mean, Josh Jacobs has actually been able to beat him out with that 75% snaps for Jacobs. And so for me, again, trying to save the money, you're right. I don't want to get all the way up to Taylor or McCaffrey or those guys this week. I want to get up to Stephon Diggs and maybe even some Amon-Ra St. Brown. And to do that, running back is where I'm taking, a little bit more of a pricing discount. So Josh Jacobs, I just think in terms of projected points per dollar, it's tough to really get off him as one of the better players on the best plays on the slate in both GPP and cash. Now he has missed these last two practices with an illness. So hopefully that's not anything, we'll have to recalibrate if so, but I do think Jacobs at 5.4 gives you just a lot more options to get up at wide receiver. And then Ramondre Stevenson at 4.8K. I'm surprised he's not the chalk of the slate, just because we finally got here. Like I joked about it in the summer, man, where it was like everyone was pushing for Ramondre Stevenson to happen. And we needed James White to retire. We needed JJ Taylor and Kevin Harris to get demoted to the practice squad. We needed Ty Montgomery to be put on the IR with an ankle injury. We need Pierre Strong to suffer a shoulder injury and not kind of be in a doghouse and not start off the season with the real role. Yeah, I mocked it in, July, but guess what? All these things have happened. So here we are. Ramondre Stevenson has the pass down role, and he's still splitting the early down stuff with Damian Harris. So 4.8K for Ramondre, again, just really underpriced in a matchup where we like the Ravens to win, and probably quite easily. And that sounds good to me, man. Give me those checkdowns on a full PPR site like DraftKings. So to me, Stevenson and Jacobs, I think you could argue their projection and where I had them ranked, like in my season-long rankings, is very similar, if not higher, than David Montgomery already. I will gladly take the slight discount there in their ownership.
If Josh Jacobs out again today, if he's out 4K Zamir White, do we have to? Does this depend on Brandon Bolden's practice? There's a lot that could change in theory if Josh Jacobs is out.
I think I'd be fine going to 4K Zamir if that's where he's at, because I don't think Bolden and Abdullah are about like as clear of a pass down backs you can get. I mean, that's why I like Jacobs, because even though he's sharing the backfield with one of those guys, is Bolden? I think Bolden's still hurt too with the hamstring. He's not necessarily a guarantee to get that role. Either way, like they're the pass down guy, but Zamir is a straight up backup for Jacobs. So that's a very interesting point. It is just an illness. We'll see.
All right. From the tournament perspective, last week, running backs don't matter. I don't think anymore. The giant fantasy scores, as I mentioned, seem to be coming from the wide receivers and generally from the wide receivers we expect them to. While the running Christian McCaffrey, is his ankle bother him? He seems angry that people are questioning his ankle. But I don't know. What are we doing in running backs? Because it seems like running backs aren't putting up these 30+ fantasy points even more. Even these
until they do,
even these supposed pass catching every down running backs just aren't coming through anymore. Does it really even matter? I mean, of course it matters who we're putting in there, but what are we doing as far as a GPP running back target? My only thoughts are coming from an ownership perspective. If guys like Montgomery and Leonard Fournette's going to be very popular this week too, because there's no one to really catch the ball on Tampa Bay. They're going to have a game plan based around him. Tom Brady is maybe a little bit dinged up. The offensive line, I don't know. I just think they're going to rely on Fournette a lot. So at least in that salary range, I'm just looking at a guy like James Robinson. You got to hope that maybe Herbert is a little banged up. Maybe that game stays a little bit closer. And in that case, I think if the game gets out of hand, you're going to see a lot more ETN. But if that game stays close, this is James Robinson show. If he gets into the end zone, he could best those guys easily.
Yeah, I don't want these guys from these offenses implied to score freaking 21, 20 points.
I get it, but like, I don't know. Like, who are you using then?
If I want to go out to Montgomery chalk, I'll go to my guy CPAT, just $100 cheaper. Like, yeah, they got blown out last week. It didn't quite work out. Go back 1 week before, and we saw the top 5 finish that we saw all last year during the first half. So Cordero Patterson against the Seahawks, like, to me, that's a terrible defense that we should be targeting against. And CPAT, of course, always has that, pass catching upside. So if London or even Pitts are going to be, the bounce back candidates, maybe CPAT's the pivot off of that. I meant like one of your best calls, shout out to you, I think, of the season was just in week 1 looking at it, and we all wanted to get up to Taylor and McCaffrey and stuff, and Taylor did go off, but I think your simple point was just like to zag on the roster construction was to take the high-priced wide receivers because people weren't really getting up there. Now, all of a sudden this week, no one really wants to get up to these top running backs. But, man, yeah, they haven't been going off yet. Do we really think it's going to take that much longer? And all of them are set up pretty damn well, man. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, yeah, I know the Colts haven't looked great, but he's still home, and he is someone that we can get 30 touches during any given week. McCaffrey's home against the Saints, where if they get up, he could be catching passes again. Henry's home against the freaking Raiders. Eckler's home against the Jaguars. Dalvin Cook's home against the Lions. So, when I was going through my season-long rankings this week, like you want to downgrade these guys because of everything you talked about and the slow start to the year, but we're still looking at, 20-plus touches for players that I'd be very surprised go that much longer without a true breakout. So I would say Derrick Henry is the one that I would really circle this week and try to get behind because, man, how many years is it Derrick Henry week? Is it not Derrick Henry week? And when people decide it's not Derrick Henry week, I think that's when it's a good time to throw him in that GPP lineup.
Yeah, if Henry doesn't do it this week, is he going to the glue factory?
No, it's just 3 freaking weeks. Calm down, everyone.
We got to see about. If I was spending up, I think mine would be, I like Dalvin Cook, and Joe Mixon would probably be my 2 if I was spending up to them. I think both of them project for nearly every down. They save a little, at least in the salary, and their matchups are about as pristine as you can get from that perspective. So those would be my favorite 2. All right, let's go to wide receiver. I don't think there's, like if you want to play, no one's going to fault you for wanting to play Diggs or Cooper Kupp or Justin Jefferson. Cooper Kupp specifically in cash at 9,900. I mean, these are tall tasks to ask this week on DraftKings unless we get some late breaking value. So I'm liking the wide receiver 1. Diggs certainly fits in that range at 7,700 on DraftKings. Amon-Ra St. Brown certainly fits into that at 7,200. These wide receiver 1s priced as, low-end wide receiver 1s or high-tier wide receiver 2s. I think Pittman at 6,900, he looks, he's a true alpha in my opinion. He should have a reasonably good week. And then you get down into like this mid, 5K to 7K tier, unless you want to play Greg Dortch again, who's 4,300. Look like he's probably going to get a bunch of targets again. And if that's what you have to do, if you have to play Greg Dortch to get the rest of your lineup full of guys you want to play, I'm okay with that on DraftKings this week. I think that's a reasonably fine play. But I'm looking more like if you play a bunch of these 5 to 7K wide receivers, if you play a Pittman, a Brandon Cooks, a Christian Kirk, a Michael Thomas, there's a couple other guys, a Juju Smith-Schuster possibly, a Curtis Samuel at 5,100 on DraftKings. I mean, what do we have to do in a PPR setting to not want to play Curtis Samuel at 5,100? From a cash game perspective, I mean, he's lit it up. He's their low ADOT, has plenty of burst to break big plays. This is sort of where I'm living. What are you looking at this weekend?
Trying to get up again, taking Stevenson and Jacobs at running back, and I'm basically punting tight end with Jawan Johnson. Our guy Jawan just still staying sub 3K. Gotta love that. So I don't need to go that low. I did take a long look at Greg Dortch, and man, as someone that just hyped Rondale Moore this whole offseason, like, this is so painful because knowing that, Dortch is just getting all those targets that Rondale would have. It hurts, man, but I do think that's reasonable. I just haven't had to go down that low in my current show. So, to your point, Stephon Diggs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, those are the 2 guys priced up that, again, just I feel like Diggs is getting the Monday Night Football piece, and Amon-Ra, like, again, how many more weeks do we need to see this dude be an elite wide receiver before we just expect it each and every week? I still feel like at 72.
Where would you rank him, right? If If he was 8,100, are you playing Jamar Chase or Amon-Ra St. Brown?
We got to think about it. I'd play Chase for I think he just has the bigger boom potential, but it's close, man.
The 7,200, it's getting up there where I think it's a little bit like the first 2 weeks. I didn't play him in the first week, but I had him on the second. I had him last week, and now his price is getting up there where it's not that big of a jump to some of the real big names now. But he's definitely wide receiver 1.
But other than Cooper Kupp, who are you more name another receiver more likely to catch 8 balls this week? Like maybe Devontae Adams or something, but we just saw him get only 2 catch 12 yards against Byron Murphy. So it really just is on a full PPR site. It's sometimes I think we get it twisted in our mind. I even kind of just said it with Jamar Chase, where upside is the guy that can go catch this 50-yard bomb and take it to the house. And those are great, but when we have these receivers that are catching 8 to 10 balls every single week, it's common sense, but we'll take 8 catches for 100 yards instead of 2 catches for 100 yards, Brit, and that's what Amon-Ra can give us each and every week. So in this matchup against a Vikings secondary that I just couldn't be less scared of, I am going back to the well this week. So Diggs and Amon-Ra, and then 2 of the guys you mentioned in the 5K range. Michael Thomas at 5,900, again, just I need multiple hands, I think, to list the guys that are being priced ahead of him that I don't have ranked ahead of him in season long. I don't know what more we need to see at this point. I mean, Michael Thomas has now played 12 games without Drew Brees over the years, and he's put up big numbers every single time, man. Like, people act like that year when he set the receptions record and was the wide receiver 1 was all Brees induced. Like, he had to play 6 games that year with Teddy Bridgewater. He comes back the next year, he's playing through the pain. He's got whatever the hell you want to call Taysom Hill, throwing these terrible passes, and he's still putting up big numbers. So with Jameis really getting to throw his heart out in New Orleans, I'm fine with Mike Thomas, and also fine going down to Chris Olave in GPPs. And finally, Juju Smith-Schuster, 5,500. This is the one guy in my cash lineup right now I'm probably least confident in, just because
he fits. It's like that salary. He's right there. I know what you're saying, and I don't know. He's gonna have an up and down season. I think all the extraneous non-Travis Kelce targets for Patrick Mahomes, they're gonna have up and down games. But I think he looks like he should have a reasonable game this week.
Exactly, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's another, 3-catch, 20-yard effort. But on that
Curtis Samuel, just play Curtis Samuel.
Hey, there we go. That's always a good. You got problems in your life, just play Curtis Samuel. But on,
I don't know if that's a joke. I don't know. He looks pretty good in that Commander's uniform.
But what you were just saying, just moving on to GPP a little bit, what you were saying about the Chiefs, Marquez Valdes-Scantling got 4.7K, continues to be the guy in 2 wide receiver sets alongside Juju, playing well ahead of Mecole, Sky Moore, Justin Watson, all these other guys. It's been 2 weeks and he hasn't gone off yet. Look at MVS in the Packers days. This was exactly who he is. He still is that guy, but he still has, that big play potential to again, just need 1 or 2 to hopefully make up all that money. He is at 4.7K. So Olave, MVS in that mid 4K range, I think are lower price guys you can help fill out. I'm not completely quitting on Elijah Moore, man, still only 5K. And it's not like he's just not been making the most out of his opportunities. Garrett Wilson's been hogging a lot of the targets. I don't think that's something that's going to persist each and every week out there. Elijah Moore's still awfully talented. And credit to Joe Flacco, man, 5 straight starts with 300 passing yards or multiple touchdown passes. So in this Jets passing game, if we can get talented pieces that are going to be going under owned now, because again, a 2-week sample size where things haven't gone exactly where we wanted to, I'm cool with that. And the final point, Allen Robinson at 5.7K. He had he caught the 1 touchdown early on AJ Terrell last week, which is awesome to see. Clearly not dust. He's got the incredible matchup I mentioned, in the Matthew Stafford player prop. I'm taking the over on the passing yards. A-Rob should have had 2 touchdowns last week. And if he would have, I think would have been up a lot higher. The injury freaking people from the top, called down because Terrell was woozy. None of the players heard the whistle. Stafford threw another touchdown to A-Rob. It just didn't count because of the injury timeout at hand. So with that in mind, man, again, someone that I think would be on a lot more radars had that fluky occurrence not happen. Rams, Cardinals, I feel like this game should be getting more shootout potential love, man. Instead, we're talking about, Vikings and Lions and some of these other Bills, Dolphins, which, hey, it could work out that way. But Allen Robinson, don't count him out.
All right, Ian, I'm going to give you 1 minute on tight ends, then we got to get out of here. What are you looking at for the tight end position?
I think you said it right in your cash game notes here. Irv Smith or Juwan Johnson. I'll prefer to take Juwan Johnson at 2.9K. Continues to have all the underlying stuff that we look for and love. And Kyle Pitts at 4.8K. Just do it. Do it. He's going to come back. He's too damn talented to not get the ball much longer. I think at 4.8K, 1 week away from him having a normal Kyle Pitts game, from being priced up another 1,000 or more.
All right, a couple tournament plays. I like Waller in the mid tier, Ertz a little bit cheaper. I love Kelsey, but it really limits what you can do this week, in my opinion. So I don't know if I have the stones to play Travis Kelsey in a tournament. It's just it really, really, really limits that wide receiver position, which I think has a ton of upside. That's going to do it for week 3 of the Pro Football Focus show here on RotoGrinders. Go check out Ian's stuff over at Pro Football Focus, along with everything else. To everyone, thanks for watching, listening. Hit that like button on your way out of YouTube. For Ian, I'm Britt. Thanks for watching, and we out ya.